Hello, and welcome to the NC Child Building Economic Opportunity webinar. Today's webinar is going to be focused on an overview of the community discussions that were held last fall across the state here in North Carolina. I'm Adam Sotok, the Director of Outreach and Engagement here at NC Child, and also on this webinar you're going to hear from Layla Bell, who is our Director of Research and Data here at NC Child. Before we get into the heart of our webinar and discussing building economic opportunity, I would like to take just a minute to provide a little more background on NC Child and the work that we do. Our mission is to work to build a strong North Carolina by advancing public policies that ensure all children, regardless of race, ethnicity, or place of birth, have the opportunity to achieve their full potential. About that in a variety of ways. Our approach includes using data and research so that we have data-driven policy solutions and public education activities that we are embarking on here as an organization. We also utilize strategic communications as well as policy advocacy, and that includes grassroots policy advocacy as well as direct lobbying and advocacy with lawmakers in Raleigh and to some degree at the federal level. And we overlay all of this with our community engagement efforts, where we're trying to work with people across the state of North Carolina to build stronger public will around children's issues. In order to achieve our mission, we focus on some major policy areas that support children's development. These include looking at things like a strong start, making sure children are off to a strong start in early childhood, a healthy start, as well as getting a good early childhood education and so forth. We also look at the issue of health and healthy children and families and focus on that a lot, knowing that that is such a key element for children here in North Carolina. Nurturing homes and communities is another area that we do quite a bit of work on, specifically around issues related to the juvenile justice system, where we're involved with Raise the Age campaign here in North Carolina, and also look at ways to improve the child welfare system. Family economic security, and of course we're going to dig deeper into that today because we know that families have to be economically secure really to be successful and to allow their children to thrive. And also high quality education. We focus on advocating for policies that will improve the education system here in North Carolina. One thing that I wanted to make sure and mention is that we are a Kids Count agency through the Annie E. Casey Foundation. NC Child houses Kids Count data, and you can reach that data through our website. You can go to ncchild.org and you can reach that Kids Count data. And what Kids Count does is it provides state legislators, public officials, and child advocates with reliable data and helps back up policy recommendations, and is really a great tool that we can all use to advance sound policies, hopefully here in North Carolina. So again, you can reach the Kids Count Data Center through the NC Child website by going to our homepage and then clicking on the Data tab. For the agenda for today, we just kind of ran through a quick welcome and introductions, and what we're going to do next is focus a little bit on why is building economic opportunity and focusing on this topic so important to NC Child and so important to all of you here in North Carolina. And then we want to do an overview of the community meetings that were held last fall and include in that some data highlights and some things that we learned as we went out to these various meetings. And all of that will lead into a quick wrap up at the end where we talk about our next steps and potential ways for all of you to get more involved. So with that, I am now going to turn this over to Layla Bell.
Thanks so much, Adam. At NC Child, we've been looking into the issue and researching the issue of economic opportunity for the past 2 years. Our agency defines economic opportunity as circumstances that make sure that every child really lives in a family and a community that is financially secure, and that also provides viable opportunities that support children's healthy growth and development. But we also know that economic opportunity means that every child really does have a true opportunity to acquire the skills, the education, and the support that they need, not only to achieve their own financial security, but also to be able to move up the economic ladder later in life. When we embarked on this work, we took a survey of the landscape, and what we saw was pretty troubling. So we know that there is declining economic security here in North Carolina and nationally, and we know that North Carolina ranks among the worst states in terms of economic mobility. So that means children born and raised here in North Carolina have a more difficult time of climbing the economic ladder than children in other parts of the country. We also know that there's an increasing concentration of poverty at the community level. And when we look at the data, we see that more than 1 million children in our state live in poor or near poor homes. And those are households that earn less than $48,000 per year for a family of 4. When we dig a little deeper into that data, we also see that children of color are far more likely to be impacted by the kind of limited economic opportunity in the state. Our African American and Native American children, 2/3 of those children are likely to live in poor and near poor homes. For our Hispanic or Latinx children, 3/4 of those children are likely to live in poor and near poor homes. We also know that this problem is fundamentally systemic. It's impacted by public policies, the allocation of resources, and the environments where people live. In fact, we know place plays a significant role in children's economic opportunities. It makes all the difference between whether or not a child has the ability to attend a high-performing school or whether or not the schools in their communities are under-resourced, whether or not children and families have access not only to health insurance, but to high quality medical services that they need to achieve and maintain their good health. It's the difference between families being able to work and earn a living to support their household, or whether or not their communities provide and offer low-wage jobs with few benefits. It's the difference between having access to healthy foods that support children's best growth and nutrition, or being locked into a food desert that often doesn't offer those same types of foods, and so much more. Again, we also see, in addition to the kind of aggregate data where kids of color are far more likely to live in poor and near poor homes, we also see that children of color are far more likely to live in communities that lack these types of resources and supports that really provide economic opportunity and the best foundation for a strong future. So our approach to examining this problem, we used research and data to identify a set of evidence-based policy solutions that have been proven effective to help move the needle in really key areas that promote healthy growth and development for children. Understood that it was important for us to develop a shared understanding of economic opportunity, not just what it means in terms of the supports that are required to promote economic opportunity, but what it means for everyday North Carolinians and how it looks in local communities across the state. And we obviously wanted to build momentum to create the types of public policy change that really need to occur in order to make sure every child has, an opportunity to achieve economic opportunity. And our analysis identified these 8 public policy solutions. So childcare subsidies, which makes sure that parents are able to work and earn a living and stay on the job, while their children are also being cared for in safe and high quality childcare settings. Paid family leave, which means that parents don't have to choose between being able to earn a living and serving in their caregiver role and taking care of children when they may fall ill. The earned income tax credit, which really helps low wage and low income families stretch their tight budgets. Insurance coverage gap to make sure that parents also have access to health insurance, because insured parents are far more likely to have insured children and are far more likely to take their children to see a doctor when they do fall ill. Making sure that every child in North Carolina has access to the educational benefits and edge that high quality pre-K provides. Making sure that families have the support, the tools, and the education they need in order to provide safe and nurturing homes and environments for their children. Helping kids and families start early to save for college and other long-term goals. And making sure that the safety net works for everyone. So when families fall on hard times, they have that resource and that support to be able to fall back on. So we took those policy solutions out to local communities. We wanted to achieve a few things during those community meetings. We wanted to explore local perceptions of economic opportunity and help develop that state-specific definition that we talked about earlier. We wanted to present the economic opportunity agenda and get the community's feedback about which of those policy priorities could have a big benefit in their local communities. And we also wanted to hear from communities what their priorities were for policy solutions, and to really get good information about areas where we may have gaps in the economic opportunity agenda. We visited 4 different communities: Asheville, Mars Hill, Winston-Salem, and Wilmington. During those conversations, we presented the data and heard from community members in real terms what their experiences were behind the data. We engaged in a policy wall, which allowed our participants to discuss and rank each of those 8 proposed policy solutions we just presented. And we also had an opportunity for communities to tell us what was important on the ground for them and what policy solutions they would like to see added to the economic opportunity agenda. We worked to create a group of participants that represented kind of every walk of life, although most of the participants in the room did work for local child serving agencies in some capacity. So across the 5 counties, we had 132 people participate in these conversations. It's important to note that this is not a statistically representative sample of North Carolina. We are not taking the findings from these conversations and generalizing more broadly to North Carolina. But what they do help us understand is what's happening in those different communities that we visited. 87% of our participants were women, and we saw that more than 1 in 4 of our participants were parents who had school-age children, with a small percent also having children under the age of 5. We saw that 8 in 10 of our participants described their households as middle class, and we saw that more than half of our participants were married. This tells us a little bit about the demographic profile of the folks who were in the room during those economic opportunity conversations. You'll notice that 78% of our participants identified as white, followed by 20% of our participants who identified as Black or African American. About 2% of our participants identified as Native American, with the remainder of our participants at less than 1% identifying as Black or Hispanic or Latinx or Asian or Pacific Islander. We had a group of participants that had a high degree of educational attainment. So we see that about half of our participants had a graduate level degree, followed by 29% of our participants who had a bachelor's or 4-year degree. Only 8% or 9% of our participants identified a high school diploma as their highest degree attained. When we look across age, we see that 44% of our participants identified as baby boomers, with the smallest percentage being the youngest generation, the millennials, at about 17% of participants. And here's what we learned during those conversations. We found that most participants believe that economic opportunity in their community has either declined or remained unchanged since the Great Recession. And we noticed that participants were really split on whether prospects will improve or stay about the same in their community. We did also find that participants are optimistic about their own family's individual circumstance and their family's ability to achieve a brighter future. When we asked our communities how they define economic opportunity, there are four recurring themes. Communities believe that parents need to be able to work and to stay on the job. They think it's important that children are able to develop skills that prepare them for future success, be that educational success, success on the job, or their ability to be productive community members. So understand that it's important for families to have the appropriate supports and tools they need to make sure their children achieve healthy child development, and that families and children live in communities that have resources and opportunities that really enable them to thrive and to be able to succeed. When we ask communities about their perception of economic opportunity at the community level, we see that about 38% of respondents indicated they found economic opportunity in their community has gotten worse since the Great Recession. That is contrasted with about 36% of our respondents who said economic opportunity has stayed about the same. We do see a minority of the participants identify economic opportunity as better than it was at the start of the Great Recession in 2007. When we ask communities whether or not economic opportunity will improve, decline, or stay about the same, we see that most participants, or a majority of participants, agree that economic opportunity is likely to improve over the next 5 years at 46%. We also see that's contrasted with 43% of participants that don't anticipate economic opportunity either improving or declining over the next 5 years. An important caveat about this data is that these economic opportunity conversations were hosted in the fall of 2016, right before the 2016 general elections. And the data really do represent the sentiment during that time. When we take a closer look at perceptions of economic opportunity, 79% of participants say that they feel their individual family is financially secure. And financial security means not only being able to make ends meet, but also having enough savings to be able to withstand a financial shock, an unexpected financial shock. When we ask whether or not participants believe their family's own economic circumstance will change and how it will change in the next 5 years, we see that 53% of participants believe that their financial circumstances will improve over time. And that's really contrasted with 44% of participants who say that their family's economic circumstance is not likely to change in the next 5 years. When we asked participants to rank the policy solutions on the economic opportunity agenda, the 3 items that were highest rated were childcare subsidies, paid family leave, and providing health insurance for low-wage and low-income parents and individuals. And we also learned from communities, areas where they have significant concerns at the community levels and would like to see some policy action take place at the state level. That's around issues regarding housing affordability, the ability to earn a living wage on the job, and also promoting criminal and juvenile justice reform. Next, Adam will walk us through some of the next steps based on the feedback we received in these community conversations and help us understand different ways we can get involved in this work.
Thanks so much, Layla, and for all your wonderful work in compiling this data and really leading the charge for NC Child here on our economic opportunity work. So now I want to talk a little bit about some potential next steps. And I will say that some of this, again, is in the context of there were some items on our agenda that we were thinking about in 2016, and I think communities were thinking about that may be a little less feasible given the results of the 2016 election. However, we know that we have to continue with this discussion in North Carolina and building public will around economic opportunity for children and families because of all of the information that Layla shared. This is a dramatic problem. It's a dramatic problem in communities of color, and we're seeing the concentration of poverty increase. And we really feel like this is something that's at the root of so many other negative indicators and outcomes for children. So, you know, we're trying to stay committed with your help and moving forward with this work, and we ask for your patience and your support in doing that. So we're going to be embarking on some more community meetings in 2017. We're going to be launching a campaign around economic opportunity, and we're trying to work now internally and with the support of our partners to figure out some of the messaging around that and some of the key ways that we're going to roll that out. But we're certainly going to be asking for your support as we move forward. We're going to be looking to develop teams across the state and local areas that are interested in really educating others and digging a little deeper around issues of economic opportunity, and have that coupled with going out to some new places and then broadening this discussion as we move forward. Here are some things that everyone could do in order to get more engaged. We have weekly legislative update calls. Those are every Friday morning at 11 a.m. with our policy director, Matt Gross. And we send emails out encouraging people to sign up for those and to call in. That will give you an update about what's happening at the state level around different policy issues, including economic opportunity items. We also encourage you to help advocate for our legislative agenda. We do have our 2017 legislative agenda ready, and we're going to be promoting that and getting the word out about that even more in the weeks ahead. That agenda includes some items, some economic opportunity items on it, and all of these materials you can find on our website, or they will be on our website, and I'll talk a little more about that. But some of the things on our legislative agenda that coincide with the economic opportunity work include trying to improve child care, get more child care subsidies, looking at issues of pay for child care providers, looking at developing a study and getting a study commission for paid family leave in North Carolina. And then the other major area is around healthcare. I think, as we all know, the healthcare system now is in a lot of upheaval, and there's a lot of changes that potentially are coming down the line that we think would really be bad for children and families. And so this is probably the one area more than any around this economic opportunity health work that we're going to be working on. We've even convened a new coalition, the North Carolina Coalition to Protect Child and Family Health. And again, you can find that information out. You can find more information about that on our website. If you go on our website under the Our Priorities section, you can get information about that coalition. You can also review any of the information that we had from the fall community meetings, where we share on our website those presentations that were given at those events, the policy walk slides, and other pertinent information. So we encourage you to take a look at that. And also wanted to let everyone know that the broad vision for the North Carolina Child Advocacy Network is continuing to come together and grow. And that is something that we see as a broad network that would include advocacy for economic opportunity, for children's health, for juvenile justice, for just really any and all of the areas of engagement that we care about pertaining to children. We're going to be encouraging all organizations and individuals to be a part of this growing North Carolina Child Advocacy Network that will help us build public will and build power for children's issues across the state. So with that, I wanted to thank everyone for listening in, and encourage you also to feel free to get in touch with either Layla or myself. Here's our contact information that's on the screen. We're just an email away, and we'll be happy to talk more about this and to update you in the near future on any progress made around these issues of economic opportunity. Thank you.